welcome back to the class, everyone. Zetas continue to be one of the larger bottlenecks in the game, both because we continue to keep getting new characters that need more than one Zeta, but in addition to that, a lot of these newer characters are lifters to older teams that now suddenly have Zetas that can be significant. So sometimes a lot of these Zetas don't just become questions of, can I get away with not putting this on, but what Zetas out there should I actively be avoiding? That really is what today's video wants to hammer down, and I do want to kind of emphasize a little bit in the beginning. We're going to be picking on a lot of the newer characters here. We have already done some videos about older characters, talking about which ones to avoid that have kind of still rung true. I'll create a link up for that in the description below if you want to check out some of the other stuff. But we want to be focusing on characters that either have come out in the last year or have become more relevant in the last year. And first up is our good friend Krex. And it is really important to talk about him because one of the longer issues that I see a lot of the community have is they see a good character and they instantly think, oh, I'm going to use him in every game mode. He's great. He's going to help a lot of my teams. I should just give him everything that he wants. And while I understand the gesture, it's not always true. Just because the character is amazing, which Krex definitely fits everything that we just said, it doesn't mean that he needs an exact certain type of relic level or mods or Zetas. It can mean that, but it doesn't always mean that. And his Zeta on his special, and this is very specific because his unique Zeta is amazing. You have to have it, otherwise he basically doesn't work at all. But the unique or the special Zeta is quite frankly just trash. Like, it doesn't do anything important at all. If you look at it, increase the damage by 20%, which at that point, most of your damage is from the fact that you're paper cutting the enemy team. You're gaining a ton of turn meter. They can't really even do damage to you. You're countering, so you don't need 20% extra damage on a special to be able to take anything out. And then in addition to that, this seems cool, but if it defeats the target enemy, reset the cooldowns of all Clone Trooper and Phoenix allies. This is almost never going to happen, and that's kind of good because the Phoenix team really isn't reliant on it happening. You're going to, again, be attacking out of turn so many different times, both from assists as well as from counters, that if any counter really relied on this happening, Phoenix wouldn't work against anything, and that's really not true. They work against a ton of different teams. So ultimately, this just comes down to the chance. The reality is most of the enemy teams are going to be killed off of an assist by Krex or Sabine or Hera or whoever else is in the team doing lots of things. So again, great character. Special Zeta really isn't doing anything at all. The next one I might get a little bit ticked about. So this is Scout Trooper. Scout Trooper, again, amazing character, somewhat similar to Krex in that regard. But the Zeta is just bad design. And there's a few things I want to talk about in regards to it. And again, we're going to be hammering away on the unique Zeta, not so much the special Zeta, so kind of the reverse of Krex. Special Zeta actually has some merit. You can add some nice damage here, and the stacking bonus damage that doesn't have any caps can really help, especially in those longer battles, which Gideon I kind of think is a little bit prone to, just because it's very defensive stat-wise in nature. But going on to the unique Zeta. It's pretty simple, and at first it seemed really good before we got Dark Trooper Moff Gideon's kit. If the leader in the or the ally in the leader spot is Imperial Remnant and no other allies that use Emperor's Trap, so basically, as long as Imperial Moff Gideon is your leader. In addition to that, Piet cannot be on the team because he would be the other one to be given Emperor's Trap. Whenever Trooper allies begin a turn or attack out of turn, all Imperial Trooper allies gain a stack of Emperor's Trap until the next turn. Non-Imperial Trooper allies or the end of the battle. So basically, you are going to get to use the buff Emperor's Trap, which gives, for those who don't remember, 6% offense as well as potency, and you're going to be able to keep gaining that every single time someone on your team takes a turn. That is an Imperial Trooper. I have several problems with, some of which I'm kind of okay with my own problems. Another problem I just think is bad design. And the first off is the whole team that Scout Trooper was built for is the Imperial Remnant team, which again makes sense. It's in his kit left and right if the leader is Imperial Remnant or whatever. The Imperial Remnant leader that they built for him is not Imperial Trooper, which that means Emperor's Trap doesn't really even get to build as the battle progresses, even if you somehow get to chain all of your attacks together. When you look at the Veers and Piet team, it's amazing because even in PvP, where a lot of the other enemies are very strong, you can typically get 10 to 20 stacks of Emperor's Trap going, which is a lot. And PvE can even go up to 100, which at that point is like 600% offense, and it's amazing. If you have someone on your own team that is going to constantly be stopping it, you're only ever going to get up to like 3 or 4. In addition to that, and I don't have as many problems as this, but a lot of Dark Trooper Moff Gideon's kit is specifically built around him gaining bonuses when the enemy team gains bonus turn meter, aka he works really well against teams that gain bonus turn meter. If we're wanting to fight teams that do that, they're going to be taking turns and interrupting. And really, that's not really that big of a problem because Dark Trooper Moff Gideon has a lot of things built in to be able to take care of that. But it just does not synergize well at all with this type of Zeta where you're wanting to be taking turn after turn after turn after turn on your own team. And even when someone on your team does take a turn, they kind of ruin it to begin with. Not to mention, and this is not really that important right now, but maybe could age poorly, there are several characters out there that actually do get a benefit when someone on your team gains a buff. C for locked buffs, Gas and Enfys Nest also gain damage whenever enemy teams gain and lose buffs. So I'm a little bit worried that that actually might not age very well over time. Realistically, it's not going to be that bad, and maybe the 6 or 12% offense will be nice, but ultimately, it's just not that good and does not synergize well with the team that he was specifically made for. Next up is going to be SLKR. So SLKR is not a new character. It really doesn't fit that criteria at all. However, it is a newer character to a lot of people with the Lightspeed bundles out right now, and again, we kind of want to give the same warning we do with Krex, where just because he's an amazing character, beats all the things, doesn't mean you just slap every single thing on him immediately. And the one we're going to pick on today is Press the Advantage. It does two things. It makes him immune to stagger and immune to taunt effects. The stagger is irrelevant. There really has never been a counter that has relied on staggering first order. In addition to that, when you do stagger, if you were to stagger him, if you didn't have the Zeta, he would actually gain max health and max protection over the process of the battle, because whenever he loses turn meter, he gains those two things. So it's not really all that bad for him, even if it could happen. The other thing is he can't gain taunt effects. This isn't relevant at all. The only character out there that could really do it, and one of his known counters, is going to be Jedi Knight Revan. And I have only seen this ever happen once on stream, and when the person did it, it completely blew up in their face, because that's just not how you beat SLKR. The way you beat SLKR is by controlling him, healing off all of his minions, and then finishing him off. If you try to go directly after him, you're going to have a ton of problems. You're going to allow Lobster to get a bunch of AoEs or assist. SLKR is going to be able to get to his ultimate ability. Hux is going to keep passing turns around. You're just going to keep getting beat up and stunned by all the characters. It's not really how you want to do it. You want to control SLKR, kill his allies, kill him, call it a day. And that's even if you're leaving SLKR on defense, which most people don't in the first place. Oh, speaking of Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, his does have a very specific clause in one of the Zetas we want to kind of avoid, and that is his unique Zeta. And the only reason you're going to want to avoid this is if you don't apply the Omicron, that seems really stupid now that I say it out loud. If you're going to apply the Omicron, obviously you have to have the Zeta, but if you don't ever want to apply that, or your guild doesn't want you to apply that, or they don't care or whatever, don't even really bother with the Zeta. So if we take the unique apart a little bit, the unique overall is good. It gives him some massive stat boost without the Zeta. Crit avoidance, defense, max health, protection, recovery, all things that, a tank would very much want. That's all great. You get to the level 7 and 8, and they introduce this new clause where they're going to give 50 or 100% health back to him. If he is ever defeated, they're going to kill the weakest ally, and then he'll kind of recover this, and then he himself can revive it. That's not in this part of his ability, but it's in the rest of his kit. So overall, it looks like a great concept, and when initially we reviewed his kit, we're like, oh yeah, that's great. He loses all of his health, doesn't take the fall, kills one of his troopers, brings him back. Makes sense. The only issue with this is for the Zeta to really work, he has to have 4 or more stacks of insight. He's never going to get 4 or more stacks of insight without the Omicron. When we look at the Omicron in TW, it does quite a few cool things, but one of the things that it does is whenever he receives damage, he gains a stack of insight. So he gets it constantly. He pretty much sits at 4 the entire time, does really cool things. If you don't, or if you're not in TW and you don't have the Omicron, well, then you're really never going to get past 1 or 2, and you're probably going to end up using it in Strategic Onslaught or whatever, where he loses it all anyway. So overall, again, good character. The Omicron can have some benefit, but if you're not going to get it and use it in TW, the Zeta is pretty much wasted for the most part. And last, and I guess kind of least, is going to be Princess Nissa. And do trust me here, this is not just like a Ewok suck, I hate them, don't get them. This is more so that the Zeta is just not very good. So overall, Nissa's kit did elevate the Ewoks to a new level that they're not currently, or they weren't used to. But when we look at her Zeta, all it really does is add the remove 100% turn meter, and number one, that's a bit underwhelming. Doesn't really do much, and it doesn't have any of the special things, whereas like irresistible, or unavoidable or undispelled, which I guess you can't dispel turn meter, but you guys kind of get the point. It's not really fancy in any of those ways. And when we look at Nissa's kit, she has her base potency is 40%. It's really low. And the Ewoks, they actually do have a ton of buffs. They don't really have any way to help potency up. So if the team has any tenacity at all whatsoever, this move just really isn't doing anything. Again, this is not meant as a knock to Ewoks nor Nissa's kit. Just this in particular isn't really doing all that hot. They didn't even, oh, I guess they did give her 20% potency in here, so she's up to a total of 60. But overall, she'll need a lot more than that to be able to land it consistently. And ultimately, this is going to be a really weird comparison, but it reminds me of Greedo's for whatever reason, because if we actually look at Greedo's special on his special with a Zeta, it pretty much does the exact same thing, which is, number one, not that great because Greedo's a very old kit and the character itself isn't the best. He gains critical chance up, where she gains crit damage up, and then he will get rid of turn meter and then stun. The only difference is Greedo's is actually better because the stun can't be resisted, whereas everything that Nissa's doing, nobody really cares that she can't resist or the turn meter or the stun or anything like that. But anyways, that is going to be the video for today. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you appreciated the Zeta rants. And until next time, stay awesome.